Hello, Carol.
Hello.
Very nice to meet you. Thanks very much for taking the time to speak to me, Carol. I really do appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Um, so I heard that it's recording there. I use Zoom sometimes, but not all the time. Is it okay for you to send me over the interview afterwards? Is that okay?
Is it okay for me to send you the clip afterwards? Is that what you asked?
Yes. I
Yeah, I
think
can
there
do
is
it.
an option. I think there is an option on Zoom somewhere where I think I can record it from my end. I'm not sure. Um, I I was hoping it would be okay if you just send it to me afterwards.
Yeah, I made
Um,
you a co-host, so you should be able to record it on your end, but I can also send it to you as a Dropbox link.
um, I think I'm recording. Right.
I know I am, so one of us will get it.
Yeah. Brilliant, Carol. Thank you. Um, so basically, the podcast that I've just begun. I've got various different sports people, actors. Um, it doesn't really matter. Loads of got inspirational stories. And to be quite honest, open and honest, when I asked you to come on, I didn't actually expect to get a reply. So when I did, my wife will tell you I've been jumping around the house for the last couple of days saying I'm getting to interview Carole Baskin. No way. Because I watched you, we're on the Tiger King, watched that show, and I suppose that's where people all around the world now know you.
Or
Um,
me.
from that, I don't know how much we can actually speak about the show and stuff for legal reasons. Of course, I'm not wanting to get you in trouble. I'm not wanting to get myself in trouble. Um,
I
you
talk
know,
about it all the time, so I don't think
yeah,
any trouble to be gotten into.
good. Because as you probably will find out over there, Carol, I do talk a lot, but obviously for the purposes of a podcast, I'm wanting to find out more about you and certainly my viewers and my fans that I've got back in Scotland to find out a little bit more about you because when the cameras are rolling, they can portray people differently to who the people actually are. And that's I'm making a documentary at the moment about my life, and going to be making a feature film about my life, and it's one of those anxieties that I have about the editing process is that you can make people look certain ways. So I'm just gutted. I bought a tiger shirt specifically for this interview, and it didn't arrive today, so I'm devastated. Um, I love big cats, and I suppose that's why I love Tiger King so much. I have some questions that we can touch on as well, and you can give me your expertise. I use Google to find a lot of things, and yeah. So you started, was it 1992?
Actually, I started rescuing bobcats when I was 17 years old, and I was born in 1961, so that would have been about 1977. And
Right.
I had done that work up until the time that I was in my 30s, which was in 1992 when we rescued the first bobcat windsong at the auction.
So see, I take it from that early age, you you knew that was something that you wanted to do with your life was to rescue and help not just bobcats, because you've got tigers, you've got lions, you've got a whole array of different cats that you're saving and you're looking after through what you're doing. So that from that first bobcat, was it sort of like did something just click where you knew early on, that you want to help and you want to help save these big cats that are otherwise going to be, I don't know, would they be terminated or would they be abused? I suppose it's
It,
these.
It was never my intention to work with big cats. I didn't know anything about big cats. My big goal from the time that I was a child was to save domestic cats and kittens. And I don't know if you have this problem in Scotland, but here in the US, our shelters kill millions of cats and kittens every year because there aren't enough homes for them. And people just won't spay and neuter their pets to keep that from happening. And so that's what I thought my life's mission would be, was to stop the overbreeding of domestic cats and kittens so that they wouldn't be dying in shelters. And it was because of that that I was spending a lot of time in veterinary offices, that if a bobcat, which is a native cat here in Florida, but in West Virginia as well, which is also where I lived. But I think for you guys, the Scottish wildcat's probably the close cousin to that, about a 20-pound cat. And if they get hit by a car, the vets can fix them up in 30 minutes or so. But then you're talking months of rehab for their bones to heal and for them to get back into fighting shape so that they can be released back to the wild. And so that's what I started doing when I was 17, was those bobcats that either had been injured or orphaned, and sending those cats back to the wild. And then when I was at that auction in 1992, and a man came in with a bobcat that he was selling as a pet, it was the guy next to me who was bidding on the bobcat. I was there to buy llamas. And I leaned over to the guy and I said, when that cat grows up, she's going to tear your face off, because bobcats are just, I mean, they are wicked animals. They are just, there's nothing tougher, I don't think, on the face of this planet than a bobcat. And he said that he was a taxidermist and that he was going to club her in the head in the parking lot and make a den decoration out of her. And so I started crying, and my husband started bidding, and we probably paid more for that bobcat than anybody's ever paid for a bobcat, but she wasn't going to get killed in the parking lot that day. And so when she came home with me, that led us then the following year to rescue 56 bobcats and lynx off of a fur farm. And then the next year, 28 more bobcats and lynx off a fur farm. And then the next year, 22 bobcats and lynx off a fur farm. And then people started calling and saying, would you take my lion? Would you take my tiger? I'm like, what are these people doing with lions and tigers? And so even, with the bobcat issue, I thought I could fix this. I could buy every cat there. I could get the owners to agree with me. They would never kill cats again for their fur. And I could end that problem. And we did. And pretty much the fur industry now is completely dead. And that has been true since about 2018. But with the big cats, I thought, how hard could that be to fix, right? I mean, nobody should have lions and tigers in their backyards or their basements. And so we'll rescue these animals and we'll get better laws and we'll stop this. And it's been, what now, like close to 30 years of fighting for better laws to end the abuse of these big cats. So it was a lot harder problem than what I thought I was tackling. I thought I was a whole lot better at this than I turned out to be. But I can see that we are finally closing in on it. And we probably will pass the Big Cat Public Safety Act this year, which will end the cub petting, which is what drives most of the abuse.
So are people in America, are people able to, suppose like in all aspects, like you can buy whatever you want, but are people buying cute tiger cubs and cute lion cubs, on the black market even, to have as a pet in their home? And
black market, it's legal. And most of the people aren't paying for them. What's driving all of this abuse is people will pay to have their picture made with a cute little cub, and they can't use them past about 12 to 16 weeks. So by the time they're 3 or 4 months old, they can take a finger off a person. And then they would go from being a very profitable prop to being a huge liability. A tiger costs us $10,000 per year per cat, just food and vet care, not any of the overhead of the sanctuary. So as soon as they get to be about 16 weeks old, those people that are pimping the cubs out, the people you saw in Tiger King, a lot of times they'll just give those cats away to people. And the people are stupid because they believe these cub pimps that are telling them, oh yeah, you just raise it in the house like a dog. It's a tiger. It's never going to grow up to be a dog.
Yeah, and people are obviously breeding these cats to make money. It's all for financial gain for these people, nothing else. They just want the money from the cute little cub that can bring in X amount of thousands of dollars for them. Then you're saying, you've got the implications that after that, you've got you $10,000, to feed a tiger and a lion, all the veterinary bills, everything else that goes, the land for them to live, and all that sort of things. It's sort of
all that.
Honestly, it blows my mind that that's still allowed to go on. But I'm not surprised, because where there's ways to make money in life, people always, they don't care about the cats. They don't care. They don't probably even care about the cubs, but certainly not when they're grown. And like you say, take a finger off. You do sometimes see people that have lions and tigers as pets. They've got a big mansion. They've got all the land there. It's in an enclosure. Usually extremely wealthy people. But if these tigers are accessible for not a lot of money, then there's going to be people wanting to source a cute tiger cub that live in a flat in a tenement block, that as soon as that cat starts to get bigger and start going with the claws and not being able to understand what's playing, and when it's been too rough, as cats don't, animals don't generally, that they could be running the streets, and there's kids out in the streets, and these cats could be potentially harming people, and it's always going to be the cat's fault. If a cat kills a kid, the cat gets shot, and the person who put the cat on the street probably, they should be prosecuted, but I'm assuming probably they won't. And it's just such a shame that these beautiful animals are treated in such a horrible way. I grew up watching David Attenborough. He was always my favourite, still is today. I love watching David Attenborough on the telly. And every Sunday night.
Great piece that was out on Netflix. Did you see that about boundaries?
I'm not sure.
Oh, it's really good. It's been out in the last few weeks.
Oh, I've not seen it then. No, I'll have a look. I'll have a look tonight once I finish, definitely. But that was sort of when I was always fascinated with tigers from a little boy. What would it feel like to have a tiger on a leash as a pet, the way that people would have a dog? These people have got Rottweilers. I've got a Rottweiler in the garden, Caesar. But people have got these dogs and stuff. And I was like, you would see it in films, the people walking around with them on leashes and the thing. Imagine me cutting around the streets, and these bullies that used to bully me, wouldn't they bully me if I had a tiger on a leash? Sort of fantasise when you're only a young boy. Then every Sunday night, 6 o'clock, you're watching these big cats on the screen. You're seeing them in their natural habitat, taking down gazelles and whatever, and you're learning. As you're watching, you're educating yourself about the big cats. And then, see, for me, Carole, honestly, I love going to the zoo. However, I've always loved going to the zoo as a kid. But I always remember seeing a polar bear one time, and it wasn't very well treated in Edinburgh, and it was really sad, and it died. I remember as a young boy, it died a few months after we had seen it, and it made me really sad that it was in such a small enclosure, and it was alone, and I had a big, for people just standing looking at it, and it was fascinating to see it. It is fascinating when you see such big, powerful animals so close up. And it's the same for the big cats, for human beings. When you have that ability to get so close to a big cat, but it can't bite your finger off. And I suppose that's why there is a market for it, for people to go and look at these wild animals, because they are wild, should be wild, these wild animals, to go and get so close. And you can pay for the privilege. And as soon as you offer to be able to pay for the privilege of something, you're offering up the opportunity for greedy nasty, evil people to make a lot of money from it. And then obviously the bad side of that is you've got all these wild animals that don't have a home.
It always comes down to the money.
The money, yeah. And see, when you opened up your life to Netflix to make Tiger King. Are you glad that you done that, Carole? Because, like I said right at the start, your awareness or the awareness of who you are and what you're doing to help these big cats. You now have a reach worldwide that you wouldn't have had, I'm assuming, beforehand, because of that show. Certainly for people like myself, I love the show, and so I'm now sitting talking to you right now. But are you glad that you've done it? Because obviously, I didn't want to talk about it too much because it is quite negative, but there's been a lot of negative stuff thrown at you as well. So I'm wondering how you weigh that up in your life, where if in hindsight you could turn the clock back pre-Tiger King and say, get out of my house, I don't want to talk to you because you're going to portray me as this person and that's not who I am. So no, you're not recording. Or would you still go ahead and say, well, yeah, because on the back end of it, people all around the world know who I am, and I'm sure you've generated many supporters. You always get the horrible, evil people that have got nothing nice to say. I get it myself. But I'm sure that you've got a lot of supporters through doing Tiger King as well. Just wondering how you feel about it, if you're able to talk.
I would do it again because of the fact that it has raised awareness about the issue. I don't care whether or not people know me versus not knowing me before Tiger King, because it's not about me. The main underlying issue here is the fact that tigers are going to go extinct in the wild in the next 5 years or so if we don't stop this captive breeding, because the captive breeding in America and in South Africa is creating a legal, because it's currently legal in both places to do that, it's creating a legal smokescreen for all of the illegal activities like poaching. And here's how that happens. If you get caught with a tiger tooth necklace and you say, that was my pet tiger, nobody can do anything to you. If you get caught with a tiger tooth necklace and it's illegal for you to have a pet tiger, then you're looking at 5 years in jail and $20,000 fine just to start for even having that tiger tooth. Well, it's always going to be a lot cheaper to kill a tiger in the wild. You're talking the cost of a bullet to get that big, beautiful canine tooth that somebody wants as a treasured piece of jewelry. And in captivity, you'd have to raise that cat until it was probably about 5 years old. So you're talking $50,000, $10,000 a year you've been putting into that cat in order to get that same tooth. It's always going to be cheaper to kill them in the wild. Plus, some of the things that cats are used for, tigers especially are used for, are aphrodisiacs for their penis. And so people who want that kind of pseudo medicine, they don't want some cage bred, inbred cat. They want the wild, the premium product. And so that puts more pressure on the cats in the wild. And by having all of these other cats that are ending up in the trade and their parts are ending up in the trade, it's normalizing that. And even though that part is illegal, buying and selling tiger skins, buying and selling their bones or their teeth or their claws, that's been illegal since the 90s. But if you have people trading in these captive bred cats and creating this smokescreen for covering for all of those illegal activities, we're never going to be able to save the tiger. So to answer your question, I would still have done this show with those producers, even though it has come at great cost personally to me and has had a huge negative impact on the sanctuary. It has not caused us to get more viewers or more donors or any of those things. We've had to struggle as a result. And so it's been horrible on us personally. But the fact that people are talking about tigers and they're finally starting to figure out that none of this captive breeding is going to save the tiger, because none of these captive bred cats could ever be set free. It's not legal, for one, to set a captive bred cat loose, but two, the mother raises them for years, teaching them how to survive. And there's no way that we can do that as people without imprinting on the cats and then creating a situation where a child could be killed or an adult could be killed by a cat that was set free. We do rehab and release here of 20-pound bobcats. But if I really screw that up and I make that cat love people, which we don't do any hands-on with them at all. But even if I were to really mess that up, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? It might kill a chicken. That's the worst thing that's going to happen. Setting a tiger loose, there's no limit how much bad stuff could happen with a tiger loose in the neighborhood. So that's why none of this captive breeding serves any purpose other than to make money for the zoos, make money for the people that are pimping out the cute little cubs. And that's why we need to stop it. And we need to actually, I think the way that we engage people, like you were talking about being close to these cats, I'm really into virtual reality. And so, and do you have a headset? Do you do any gaming or anything?
I do game quite a lot, Carol, yeah, but I've not the virtual gaming really does quite scare me. Played it like Resident Evil, which is like a scary game. I'm bad enough playing it on the television. When they put the headset on, you know, it's amazing. The technology over the last decade is absolutely amazing that you could put this headset on, and when you tilt your head, you know, you're brought to something else. I do love it.
And you're and yet you're saying, man, that's too scary for me because it feels so real, right?
Yeah.
It feels like you are there. So imagine you put the headset on and it's streaming to you live webcams in the wild where these cats are living, 360 views, so you can see everything that's going on. And you can pick from cameras, like, you know, maybe this camera down by the water there's no activity here, but you can see on a heat map that over by the den site there is. So you just take your joystick and you hop over to the den site and you're right there in the den with the mama cat raising her cubs. That is what's going to make people want to save these animals in the wild. And all of the money for that should go back into the wild so that people who live with tigers or lions or leopards or wherever they are in the world, that they want to protect those ecosystems so that there are plenty of cats to generate money from people like us who would pay to see them in a headset. And I think the way zoos will remake themselves is, you know, if you could imagine that there was cameras all around the world, none of us could afford the subscription fees to all of them, right? But the zoos could. And then you go to the zoo and you pay your $10, but you can go anywhere in the world while you're there that day. You can put on a headset and you can go to the Himalayas and see snow leopards, or you can go to Brazil and you can see jaguars, or you can go out to Colorado and see mountain lions. That's the kind of real education and entertainment that zoos can and should remake themselves into. And we need to just do away with cats in cages altogether. But I keep getting off on the things that really get me excited. So
no, it's fascinating.
The producers of Tiger King told us that they were making a film like Attenborough would have made. They were calling it Stolen Wildlife. And it was all about how all of these people are abusing these big cats and causing the extinction of them in the wild. So for 5 years, we worked with them thinking that was what they were creating. And when they asked me questions about my husband's disappearance, you know, I'd ask them, how does this have anything to do with cub petting or protecting big cats? And they said, well, you know, these guys that abuse the cats, they always say that kind of stuff about you. And we just wanted to have you, you know, squash that by telling us what happened, which I did. And instead of using all of the stuff that I gave them that would show things like the public records and the court case when my husband went missing and the way that I treated his daughters, I was so much better to his daughters than he had ever been to them. And I provided all of that to them. But that wasn't a good story. And so they left all of those things out and just had all of these people, mostly animal abusers, lining up one after the other, accusing me of all kinds of things, and then not showing any of the evidence to the contrary. And then they called it Tiger King, and we were like, they told us he was going to be like a 10-minute piece in this thing, not that this was going to be a whole show about Joe and some feud that we never had. I'd never even spoken to Joe. How do you have a feud with somebody if you've never even had a conversation with them? Sorry, that's my phone pinging.
Yeah, and it's like what we said right at the very start, that these people can edit the footage. You can give them hours and hours of footage and everything that they want, but if it doesn't make a story, they won't be interested in it. So they can edit in a specific way to make you look like a villain.
Yeah.
You know, which is how they painted you out to be, and on Tiger King, you know.
And I don't even know that it was necessary. Like, they had a good story in the fact that these are a bunch of crazy people and they're doing crazy things. I mean, you're talking about people that are a bunch of drug addicts that are breeding all of these tigers and all of the, I mean, we called it murder, mayhem, and madness because it was just a freaking crazy train wreck of a show. You could have had all of that and not have said any of the nasty things that they had those people say about me and still had a really interesting show. So I don't know why they felt necessary to trash the only person in the entire show who was actually trying to protect big cats.
Yeah, and that's the saddest thing of all, I suppose, is that you're there, you're trying to save, or you are saving these big cats, and then you're being portrayed as somebody that you're not, and there's nothing, very little that you can do about it, I suppose, because, you know, it's not like virtual reality where I can put on a virtual reality headset and say, I wonder how Carol's doing today. I'm going to go and zoom in from Scotland and sit in the living room with Carol. I can't do that. So people don't get to see who the true Carol is. They get to see the Netflix show that portrays Carol as someone that you're not. And that's what people believe is real. And that's true. And, you know, and I watch, I go into social media, and I have done over the last few days, you know, and you can't change people's opinion. You can't change their mind. You can try as much as, hopefully, this interview you're doing, certainly people in Scotland that are going to watch this, hopefully I can help change people's opinions of you, because by doing interviews like this, people are getting to see the real Carol, not just what Netflix has decided to put out. And, you know, that virtual reality thing blows my mind. That's amazing, because it is true that when you put that headset on, certainly if you can add sounds, you can be on the Serengeti, sitting in Scotland, you know, and I can see them in the wild habitat, which is what I want. And I think that's what, certainly people with good hearts, genuine hearts, that's what they want. Zoos and stuff, yeah, it's good to be like, you know, it's good to be able to see the animals and stuff. But like I said about that polar bear, it made me really sad that polar bear was locked up in a cage like that. And now through technology, we can give people an opportunity to go to a zoo and jump from the Antarctic to Africa in the split second at their choice, watching these beautiful animals with their young, acting in a natural way, no cages, nothing. And I think that definitely has to be the way forward. How you go about that, I'm sure you obviously know way more than me, but I suppose that we have to take the money. This is what it is. It's the greed of people, human beings, is how to take these people that are making money from the big cats, you know, not take them out of the equation, because they can't take them out of the equation. You know, I was going to say something there, but I want to incriminate myself. But anyway, you know, these evil people that are making all this money, we have to give them another incentive, you know, to want to get on board. The zoos getting on board. I could definitely see it.
You know, even if it were available to people that we could do it straight from our homes, we're still going to want to go to zoos for something you just said. And that is, when you go there, you can have the full experience. So imagine any zoo, the Edinburgh Zoo, And imagine there's no big cats, no carnivores in cages. I don't know whether or not zebras and donkeys and whether or not those kind of animals, maybe they're perfectly happy being there, being fed all day. But I can tell you, if you open the door for a big cat, it's going to leave and never come back. So that tells me that they don't want to be there. But imagine if they took all of those carnivore exhibit halls and buildings and they transformed each one. So you've got like here's China over here, and here's the US over here, and here's South America over here. And when you go into those regions where those cats are, they're not only showing you, and you're not only hearing because you can get the sound.
Sorry, Carol. That's my doorbell. I'm really sorry. It does stop. It does stop in a second, I promise. There we go.
I can wait if you want to go answer the door.
My wife's done it. It's okay, sorry.
So imagine not only are you seeing and hearing what is going on in the wild in those places, but what if it was supposed to be up in the high mountainous areas where it's really cold and they're just blasting you with cold air and they're blasting you with the sense of whatever is cooking in that region, things that you would really associate with that area. And so you're getting that absolute immersion in that animal's world. That is something that you just can't recreate anywhere. And even if you were to go on a safari and go to India and see tigers, I've seen how that works. You have like a whole bunch of people crammed into a Jeep. You got all these Jeeps that are chasing these poor tigers through the woods so people can get their picture made with the cat. Everybody's, jockeying for a position to get that best shot. When you've got this on, you've got the best shot in the house. You are there. It's just you and that cat. And I think that's what people are going to really marvel at. And I think some of the things that we're doing right now, like with cryptocurrencies and NFT tokens, those are the ways that you'll be able to provide that a purchase method for a stream. So like a camera stream would be assigned to a token, and the zoo would have access to way more tokens than you or I could afford to subscribe to be able to provide that to everybody else. But then the money from that token actually goes primarily back into the wild, because it does always come down to money. The zoos have to make something for what they're providing there, but they won't have the expense of taking care of a bunch of big animals, even big cats that are costing them $10,000 per cat per year. They don't have to have all those fancy zoo vets. They don't have to have all of that infrastructure that is accommodating these animals that are miserable in cages when they can provide that kind of entertainment.
Yeah, I was in Las Vegas. I got married in Las Vegas, and I remember sitting at the cinema, and it was a Avengers movie, right? So it's not entirely off topic. And I remember sitting there watching this Avengers movie. The chairs moved a little bit, and a fire in the film. There was a fire. There was an explosion. And then there was a fire. I can smell it. I can smell burning. And I was sitting in the tent, and I was like, no way. And I was like, what the cinema had done is they took the scent of burning flames and stuff, and the sound from the flames underneath the seats and stuff, so that you could totally experience what it felt like. There was water. I don't know how they done it, but there was a scene as well when a barrel hit some water and it splashed onto the screen, and you get a little spray of water on your face. That's amazing that you can be sitting there in full safety and experience those things, and it's only going to get better and stronger. Certainly the virtual reality, probably 10 to 20 years ago, unheard of. The concept of putting something on your head and being able to do what we can do now on the PlayStation, or even gaming. I've got the zoo game there on the Xbox. Primarily, I got it for my niece because it has elephants and it's got giraffe and you feed them and all the rest of it. I remember sitting playing it myself, and it was just like, it's just crazy. But the technology is moving on so quickly that it is only a matter of time before people can experience amazing things from where they are and still being able to see it.
And I bet that theater that you were in Las Vegas was probably like 100 times fancier than anything you ever saw at a zoo, which tells you a lot of money is coming into that. So zoos can make a lot more money doing that kind of thing than they can by exploiting animals.
Yeah. And it's just what you have to show that you just have to show them. I suppose it only takes one person to show someone, like, have an amazing idea that works, and when you start to get some people on board and they're forever talking about it to all their friends just through word of mouth, it was amazing, I want to do that. Like, I want to do that. Kids get involved, and especially kids. When you educate kids about tigers and lions and bobcats and any animals being mistreated, it melts their wee hearts. You can see it in their face, the fact that they can't understand why adults are doing these horrible things to these big cats and why these cats are having to get put down. And they're the future, long after we're gone, all these young kids are going to be growing up. So educating them early. And then obviously now kids are down with the technology more than what I am, and that's only going to continue. But how do we use technology in a positive way? Certainly when it comes to zooming out into the Serengeti and Africa and all across the world, wherever we want to be, we can be. And we can smell them, we can feel the breeze, we can hear all the noises of the cubs, and it's just amazing. Like, and I genuinely, hopefully in my lifetime, Carole, I think that it will become a reality. I think not just with that, so many aspects of things in life, I think, are going to be going virtual over the next 30 or 40 years. I just hope that I'm here long enough to see it, because, just over the last 10, 20 years, it's just amazing how they were able to, I don't know, is it aliens? I've had this debate with somebody. Is it aliens that's caused all this influx of technology? We won't go into that, Carole, but I've had a conversation with someone, a debate. So, it was alien technology that is allowing us to have this technological advance so quickly, because back in the day, it just wasn't the case. But I don't know.
I think it's necessity. They say the necessity is the mother of invention. And when COVID hit, we had to figure out a different way to do business and a different way to keep going. And we had to do it all virtually. And so I think we moved that needle forward 15 years in the last year. And that's, one of the, when you talk about, was there anything good that came of Tiger King? It was like, this was like a double whammy, because both COVID and Tiger King caused this lurch forward toward this way of protecting animals in the wild, you don't have tigers in an ecosystem unless that is a healthy ecosystem with fresh air and clean water and plenty of prey. And to have all of those things, that means we have a healthy planet. And so for us to figure out a way that we can channel everyone's desire to be close to these magnificent animals and to just funnel that money right into saving the planet, this is like a win-win for everyone that nobody would have thought of probably for another 15 years if it hadn't been for Tiger King and COVID hitting right side by side within 5 days of each other.
Yeah, and that's great that there has to be positives, to take from it. So yeah, I wrote a book because of COVID that I otherwise would probably never have got around to writing. So I don't know if this is thing, mate. Heroine to hero.
Wow.
So, Carole, I don't know. I'm assuming you don't know. So back when I was 18 years old, I was a heroin addict, and for 7 years. And I tidied my whole life up. And then I went and joined the Scots Guards, the British Army. So I was standing outside Buckingham Palace with my red tunic and bearskin, then unfortunately, I was in a serious car accident. I broke my back and I crushed my spine. So I got medically discharged from the armed forces. Whilst I was in the army, telling people about my drug life back in the day, they all said, you should make a film, and you should write a book about your life. So literally, because of COVID, I ended up writing the book. I'm donating all the money to homelessness in Scotland. And this has brought me to you because I've had to throw myself into social media, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. I've now got all these accounts with all these tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of followers, hopefully soon. These people that are aware of my story and support me and buy the book. And I've now created this podcast station where I set up initially for these amazing people who have supported me over the last year on social media, to give them a platform to come and talk to me. Obviously for me to thank them and to hear more about what they're doing and what they're up to in life and stuff. And then, so I've created this podcast, and then I just so happened to think, what's the chances of, Carole Baskin coming and letting me interview her? That's, genuinely thought no chance. But I'm of the opinion now, if you don't ask in life, you don't get. So I thought, well, try. So I asked, and then I got that message back from you. And I remember running up to the wife and showing her, I was like, this is amazing. And my wife obviously knows as well as what a lot of my followers do, that I've got a passion for wildlife. A lot of the questions that I've done on some podcasts, I've got a friend called Aaron who lives in Ohio, and it's called Across the Pond. It's just a laugh. A lot of the things I do about addiction and things, it's quite serious talks that I do. So it's a nice way for my new American friend to let people see me having a laugh. And I'll always have some questions back and forth, and a lot of them are wildlife related. I won't put any of them to you. There was 2 questions that I did want to ask you, Carole. The first one was tiger versus a lion. If they were fighting, now I Googled it and I think I got the right answer, but you're going to know more than most. I do believe the lion is considerably heavier. Am I right in saying that?
It really depends on the individual. Like, our biggest cat currently is a female lion, but typically it would be like a male lion or a Siberian tiger, because we've had tigers that were 750 pounds. This female was 500 at her peak.
They would never meet, obviously, like generally, and it was just that if they did, I had like a rhino versus an elephant, just these battles. I don't know, it's a kid in me, I suppose. And then, so yeah, that was one of the questions, that if a lion came up against a tiger, and they had to go at it, who would your money be on that would win that fight?
Our website, bigcatrescue.org, has a page about lion versus tiger, because that's one of the questions I get more than anything else, especially from, like you mentioned, it's a kid kind of thing. So kids are always fascinated with that. And I really don't know the answer. That's why we have a huge, it's the most commented page on our entire website, because everybody comments on what they think is going to be the answer to that question. But I've never had a lion and a tiger in a fight here at the sanctuary, because that would be a horrible thing to have at the sanctuary. You don't want cats fighting for their lives. So I really don't know. I mean, there's just so many different variables. Some people say because the lion has a big mane, the tiger wouldn't be able to get to his throat or to his neck as easily as it would be the other way around. But then you've also got the issue that a male lion with all that mane is kind of like off balance. whereas a tiger could be much more agile and move around more. And you've got the huge weight differences, from some of our tigers who have weighed 250 pounds to some that have weighed 750 pounds. And the same thing with lions. There's a huge range in their size. So I have no definitive answer. That one is still up in the air.
Up in the Right. So this is the second question that I did want to talk to you about. And it was ligers. Now, I mean, I think it was either a YouTube video, I think maybe a few years ago. This thing was absolutely massive.
It can be over.
So what's your take on that, Carole? What's your take on ligers existing, I suppose? Because in the natural world, I don't suppose they would. It would never happen. So
same continent.
Yeah. So are you of the opinion that ligers shouldn't exist? It should never have been done, or?
Yes, and the reason is most people don't understand why it is that they're so big. Lions and ligers are the cross between lions and tigers, and the offspring is bigger than either parent because they suffer from something called gigantism. So you probably were growing from the time you were born until you were probably about 18, 19 years old, and then you got to be about as big as you were going to be. We go out this way more, but we've gotten as big as we're going to be structurally. And I'm not saying anything about your size. I'm saying all of us, as we get older, we tend to expand. I certainly have. Yeah. When they lack that gene, that gigantism is what happens is in a liger, they're lacking that gene that causes you to stop growing once you become an adult. And so they just keep growing and growing and growing. And no animal is prepared for, they're just not made to do that. And so what happens is it kills them very young. They hardly ever live past 5 to 7 years old. And some of them don't have that gene. So like we had a liger that we rescued years ago, and she was like 300 or 400 pounds, like a regular lion was. But so she lived until she was 17, I think, which is pretty old for these cats. They usually live to be like 10 or 12. For lions and tigers, typically live to be 10 or 12. Here they live into their late 20s. We got a whole bunch of cats that are over 20 years old here. It's because they get great food and they're not harassed and it's quiet and all of that. But with the liger, if the whole idea is to create this massive animal just so that you can show off that you were able to breed lions and tigers and create something that doesn't exist in the wild. And that doing that means that animal is going to suffer and die because it suffers from this condition, and most of them do, suffers from this condition where they just can't stop growing. What kind of person does that? What kind of evil person does that to lions and tigers? Well, you know what kind of evil people, the people you saw in Tiger King, the people that are still doing that. And there's just no good to come of it. They don't serve any conservation value for tigers. They don't serve any conservation value for lions. It's just a freak that people will pay to see because people are stupid and they want to see things that are novel and unique. And they don't think about what's happening to that animal as an individual and how much it's suffering for their entertainment.
It's definitely greed, Carole, isn't it? People, unfortunately, money is the root of all evil. I believe that. And like you're saying, that if these scientists can create things that are going to want people paying money to go and see, they're going to do it. And it's just like with the liger, when you first see it, it's amazing. When you first see it on the screen, obviously I'm not seeing one up close, and I wouldn't plan to either. But when you first see it on the screen, you think, wow, look at the size of that thing. But then when you educate yourself, and obviously you've just helped educate people there, with what happens, and then it's like, well, hopefully for a lot of people, that sort of takes the novelty away from wanting to see ligers here, there, and everywhere, because it's not good for them. Tigers are tigers. They're amazing. Lions are lions. They're also amazing. They're also natural. They've always been there, and they always should be there. Didn't meddle in these things that didn't really concern you to make some money so that you can be rich. And that's easy for me to say, and I'll continue using my voice, and I'll keep saying it because that's what it is. It's greed. But it's just wrong. How many cats do you have now at your sanctuary?
We have 52 right now. At our peak, we had 200. And that was because we did those 3 fur farm rescues really early on with 56 and then 28 and then 22. Those guys were like within 3 years of each other. So we had a whole bunch of those cats. But as they reached their late teens and early 20s, now they have passed on. And then the other cats we've taken in, the bigger cats, we haven't taken in huge groups like that, like we did in the beginning.
That's a huge financial burden. And obviously the cats exist, and without your help, they're going to starve or they're going to be put down. What do you feed them? Like and the people over, is it Florida you're in, Carole?
Yes.
So you would hope that these businesses over there that deal in, I don't know, chicken or meat on things and stuff, that they would, do they step up and support you to be able to help feed these big cats? No. I know you're, sorry, was that, when I see you laughing, it's like, I think I'm getting the answer now, and there's going to be a no. Such a shame, because they probably put so much food into waste that ends up going rots away, that could otherwise be used to help feed these big cats.
Well, there are some people that feel themselves up that. So we have to raise between $3.5 and $4 million every year to take care of the cats and do the work that we do here. And of course, a big part of that is feeding these cats. So we were feeding 500 pounds of raw meat a day. And so if you can imagine some local chicken company or something, they don't have 500 pounds a day that they can give you of their product. That's crazy. It's like ridiculously expensive. And these cats eat a huge varied diet here, just like they would in the wild. So our cats get beef, chicken, turkey. 2 days a week, they get whole rats and whole rabbits that are they arrive frozen, but they are bred for people that have snakes, because apparently people feed rats and rabbits to their snakes. And so there's a whole industry there that we can buy from, but they're even more expensive than the beef and chicken is. But the cats need the whole body. They need the fur, they need the entrails, they need the bones, they need the brain. That's their favorite part. They love the brains out of these animals more than anything. And if you think about the pieces of meat that are in grocery stores, not many people are eating the brains out of these animals. And not a whole lot of people eat rats or rabbits, which are a huge part of the diet for these cats. So there are some people that use what they call the Walmart diet. So like everybody that you saw in Tiger King, except for us, all of those people use a scheme where when Walmart or other big, I don't know if you know what Walmart is where you are. It's like a big,
yeah.
So any of these big stores, they're going to end up with meat that expires, and then they have nowhere to get rid of it, and it's expensive to dispose of it. So what they'll do is they'll take all of the meat that expires and they throw it into these big barrels, and then they'll tell everybody around them, you can come pick up the food whenever you want. And so the people who have these big cats all across the country are going in, picking up these barrels, sorting through it. The people who do that tell me that about 20% of the food is actually feedable. The other 80% is so wretched they can't even feed it. And you can imagine that there's like no refrigeration that's happening. This stuff's being trucked around in the back of pickup trucks and everything, so it's not being kept cold. And it's not the cuts of meat that the cats need. It's only the cuts of meat that people eat. And so people aren't eating the things like the bones and the brains and the hearts and the livers. Sometimes people eat liver, but not a lot of it. So they're not getting a complete diet from doing that. And that's one of the reasons. One of the guys that was in Tiger King that took over for Joe Exotic, Jeff Lowe took over Joe Exotic Zoo, and he
Yeah.
recently had all of his cats taken away from him by the government because they said that diet was not sufficient. And that's the same diet almost everybody feeds, because all of his cubs were being born with metabolic bone disease, where their bones were so fragile that if they just, tripped and fell, they were breaking their little legs, and then they were being passed around from person to person, and people dropped them or crushed them because they're so fragile, and they're suffering with these lifelong debilitations because of the bones healing wrong, because the diet was so bad, because it was the stuff thrown away by grocery stores. So there is that program, but we are not a part of it.
I suppose you can't beat the natural habitat where, you're taking down these animals will take down a gazelle or a wildebeest in the wild, and they, like you're saying, they would eat the whole thing. You can't mimic that. Short of putting a wildebeest in a cage, and having the lion taking it down, you can't really, giving them offcuts, say, meat is putting food in their belly, but it's not what they need to be strong and healthy. And like you said there, when the cubs come out and they're brittle, it's just a shame. It's horrible, actually. It's sad that it goes on. It's not a surprise that it goes on, because everything's just money orientated. Now, out of these cats, final question, Carole, because I know time is precious. But you've got 52 cats. I watch anything to do with big cats. I'm fascinated. I watched some videos the other day there. These guys walking in to the cage, full-grown tiger comes up, and he sits and he puts his arm around it. Oh, how are you? How are you? And it's like, and he's petting it. And it blows my mind, right? That they're still alive, for one. They've had the cats maybe since they're cubs. So I'm assuming that's the reason why they're still alive, because certainly a wild cat would eat them, But you see them doing that. But the animal kingdom dictates that, that a wild animal like that, of that size, would eat a human being. Would you ever, if you've had big cats from cubs and you've got to know them throughout their whole life till full size adult, would you ever go in a cage? I don't think I ever would. I think I'd be too scared. But would you ever go in a cage to feed them, or just to say hello like these guys are doing, and petting them and saying, obviously give them names and stuff? Would you ever contemplate doing that?
Back in the 90s, I did, because I was stupid. And, I never bred lions or tigers here at the sanctuary. I only ever raised one tiger from very small. And, she slept in the house and she walked on a leash and all of those kinds of things. But what people don't realize when they see people doing that, those cats, lions and tigers, they can be 200 pounds by the time they're a year old. They can be 500 pounds by the time they're about 4 years old. And they're still mentally babies. So if you raise them, they'll still pretty much, they can kill you by accident just because they're so powerful, but they're not trying to kill you until they get to be about five years old. And by the time they're 5 years old, that's when they become sexually mature. And in the wild, they would kill their parents in order to take over their habitat. And they will do the same thing to you. And so all of that showboating that you see out there are cats that are under the age of 5. In fact, Roy Horn, who was considered one of the best magicians ever, Siegfried and Roy, his cat Montefiore, I think he had just turned 5, maybe 7. He was still a really young cat when he tried to kill Roy Horn. And that's because he became who he was. He grew up to be a big cat, which is what they all grow up to be. So these people that are showing off are misleading people who are looking at that and thinking, oh my gosh, it's a full grown adult cat that's letting them do that. It's like, no, it's a baby that's letting them do that. It's just a really big baby because they grow so fast.
Yeah. So for anybody watching, don't be going into any cages just with any big cats because, well, for one, it's not sensible. And like Carole just said there, they're babies. They maybe look big, but they're still babies. And like you said there, in the wild, that is what happens. It's all about territory, naturally, for these cats that certainly when females come on the scene, and you've got these young male cubs try to get there. The son, the dad tiger and the cub tigers will go at it, and usually it will result in somebody dying. But we'll not talk about that because that is sad. Carole, I just want to say thank you very much for taking the time out of your life to come and talk to me. I really do appreciate it.
And good
Fascinating. Sorry?
Good luck with your book.
Thank you. I mean, you're away over there. I've done a podcast in Florida before, and I've had many people that have got my book over in the States, but I don't know what postage would be to get a book to you. But I'd love to send you a copy anyway. And
I have time to sit back and read.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, it's just been fascinating having you on to talk to find out more about Carole Baskin, not what Tiger King and Netflix want us to know about you, but what you're like as a real person, like for the last year, for the last hour. So thank you very much, Carole. I really do appreciate it, and I'm sure I will be keeping you updated with everything optimistic that I'm doing. Certainly. I know you're going to be too busy anyway, because obviously you're doing amazing stuff over there. But I will keep you updated on social media anyway. So hopefully at night time when, he's made a documentary, I'm going to watch that tonight because I've got a spare hour, which I'm sure doesn't happen very often. I really appreciate it, Carole, and yeah, I'll definitely stay in touch anyway. I wish you all the best with everything that you're doing, saving these big cats with the virtual reality. I'm eagerly anticipating something amazing and huge coming out where virtually we are able to travel the world and watch these cats in their natural habitat. I believe it'll happen in my lifetime. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.